Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it can be a challenging and ever-changing role because we've worked in the church too, which is why we built a community with over 25,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Allred and Jahng, who want to help equip you to reach more of your congregation and community. This is the place where we'll talk shop with fellow practitioners and professionals about what's working, what's not, and what's next. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Welcome everybody to the Church Communications Podcast. So glad to be back with you today. I'm really excited because we have a special guest. Our friend Nathan is joining us. Nathan works at CDF Capital, and I'm really excited to learn more about Nathan, what he does at CDF Capital, and then also just about what CDF Capital is and how it helps churches. So Nathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate you having me on. So a little bit about myself. I have the longest title in my organization. So it's a really awesome title. It's Executive Director of Marketing and Business Development.
Yeah,
just a fancy way of saying that I run marketing. And so the way I describe my job to people is my job at CDF Capital is to advance and protect the brand and create opportunities for us to help churches and ministries. That's my job. Thankfully, I'm not on the sales side of it, so I don't actually have to go and find churches to help or in a sense of close the deals with them, but just advance the conversation about what we do, why we do it, and whom we serve while we do it. And so it's really focusing more on the larger scope of our brand and our positioning rather than the fine details of what helping a church actually looks like for us. A little bit about myself before I get into CDF Capital. I've been in church marketing and communications and business since 2000.
Okay. So you started some churches in the past. Yeah.
So right out of college, I started working at my church and became a associate pastor there, did youth ministry and college and career ministry. And in the midst of that, I got hired by the denomination our church belonged to. And I went and I helped them with a lot of different projects. I ran communications for a bit. I did all the web stuff there for a while. So I spent about 4 years working at a mainline denominational headquarters just in the communication side of it. All that entire time, I also went to seminary, got graduate degrees. I also served in local churches. So I've had every role you could have as a pastoral person in a local church, except for lead pastor. So I've been kids, youth, college and career, associate, teaching, campus, executive pastor, all sorts of different organizations. But until about 8 years ago, my entire career had been bivocational. So I had a full-time job and I did full-time ministry.
Right.
And over the years, I just started doing a lot of marketing because not because I loved it, I thought it was great. I was just good at it. I could talk a lot. I could write well, and I'm really persuasive, mainly because I have my undergraduate degree in rhetorical criticism, and I was a debater in college. So.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I was like, is that a real major? Like, did you really study that?
Yes, I do. I have a major. My degree is in rhetorical criticism. It's phenomenal.
Is that really a thing?
It is, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Long Beach, here in California. So part of the communication studies program. And so I literally have a degree in how to convince people to do things they don't want to do. And that serves me well in marketing and communications. But I've had the pleasure of working across a lot of industries. I've worked major automotive. I've got to work a lot with the entertainment industry. And also with a lot of very large nonprofits and ministries over the years in my consulting and my work side. I spent some time with Faith Life and when they were still August Bible Software, and it all came together. And my first job where I was a full-time pastor and a full-time person is when I got asked to go down to Rock Church in San Diego and served on the executive team there and oversaw production, Sundays, communication, marketing, PR, social media, and worship. So the creative side of there. And it was a great experience there. Fantastic church, fantastic people. And then from there, I decided to move on and went back to consulting. And that wasn't as much fun as I thought it would be. And so I landed at CDF Capital about 5 years ago.
Okay. All right, great. And then what drew you to CDF Capital?
Really simple. I love the local church. I really do. That's why my entire career as an adult, I've done both. I've done local church and I've done work. So it's an opportunity for me to go help a lot of churches instead of one church.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And
so for me, it was just, hey, this organization is helping hundreds of churches. Let me go help them.
And so I guess the question is now for our audience who may not be as familiar, what is CDF Capital and what do they do for the church?
So in technical terms, CDF Capital is what they call a extension fund. So a lot of the church denominations have these funds associated with them that allow them to be a funding arm for church growth.
Right.
In the sense of issuing loans and issuing grants and different things. And almost every major denomination has one or more of these funds. We are an independent fund, which means that we are not tied to denomination. There's a handful of us that operate around the United States that operate as an extension fund where we're not tied to denominational structure. The good side is we can help more churches. The downside is that we don't have the finances and the organization of a denomination behind us.
Right.
So in broad terms, what we do is we help churches primarily through lending. So rather than going to a bank or going to a credit union or a church can come to us and we can help them with their loan. But beyond that, we do a lot more. And we have our mantra we call transformational capital. And what we believe is that every human being is on a spiritual journey. And the best place for that spiritual journey to happen is in the local church. And so we exist to help get local churches the capital they need to transform the community. And for us, it comes in three forms. The financial capital, which is the investments that we use to fund our lending and the loans themselves. What we call leadership capital, which is pouring into the lives and the ministries of the individual leaders of these ministries that we work with. And spiritual capital, which is pouring into the spiritual lives. And so we break it down like this way. Financial capital, we do investments and loans. Leadership capital, we do cohorts and events. And for spiritual capital, connecting and prayer. We have a massive prayer network of almost 35,000 people that we use to pray for church leaders. And a great example of the power of that network, and this is really the heart behind CDF Capital. In California a few years ago, there was fires, a lot of fires in California. And there's a town called Paradise that almost the entire town burnt down. In fact, the big church in town was a church that had a loan from us. And the only thing left in that entire area of town that wasn't burnt was the cross on their stage. And the name of the church was called Hope. And through our prayer network, we were able to mobilize churches across the country to send resources and help. But what's really amazing is that there's a church up in Southern Washington and Northern Oregon that was struggling financially. And they decided that they were going to do a sacrificial giving for Hope because one of the key members of their church used to go to Hope in Paradise. And when they did it, their giving doubled that week. The next week, they didn't do another sacrificial giving, but their giving doubled again. And this church went from being struggling financially to, in a period of a month, they're giving quadrupling and getting stability in there. And it wasn't that we did anything special. We just connected the dots. We just got this church that knew about us in Oregon and this church that knew about us in Paradise and got them connected to each other in prayer. And it had a net positive effect for both churches. And so for us, that's what we do. We do the nuts and bolts. You need a building, we can help finance. You want to redo your facility, we can help you do that. You have a bad loan with the bank, we can refinance. That's a big, broad things we do. But what comes with that is the interconnectivity of tens of thousands of people and hundreds of churches working together to see churches be better in the United States. So that's what CDF Capital does.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So on that note, you talked a little bit about what this church did to pivot during COVID and then obviously the wildfires and those kind of things. So what about churches have you seen? Like, how do you think COVID has affected the church in the last year?
I think it's affected it in a lot of positive ways. And actually, to be honest, I love where church is going because it caused every church in every size to rethink what ministry was to begin with. And listen, we're a lender. So we exist. We're a nonprofit. We're a qualified ministry, but we operate by lending churches money. So just for us, churches and buildings is a good thing. But what COVID did, it really forced every ministry that I work with to rethink the why and the how of the purpose of having a building in the first place.
I agree.
And I think that cannot be understated in this environment because far too long, and I'm part of this, and I did this, and I've done this at churches. We've tried to just attract people to where we are.
Not to where they.
we have this capital investment. It's this great facility. If we could just get, Katie, you work with churches. How many times you've heard, if we could just get them in the door.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't want them in the door. We want you out the door.
Right.
We want the church out the door.
And that's what this has done. It's forced the church to stop being a building and start being a people. And yeah, there's some big churches that have survived. There's some big churches that have thrived, but there's some little churches that have done amazing things as well. Yeah. We have a church that we work with in Arizona, Pure Heart. Mm-hmm. When COVID happened, we were able, in a financial situation where we were able to defer over $4.5 million worth of payments of our churches last year.
Oh, wow.
We proactively did it. We didn't wait till they asked for it. We just said, hey, you're in good standing with us. This is what we want to do with you. So Pure Heart took that, and they took every penny they saved with that deferment, and they put it towards providing mental health services for their community. And they became one of the largest mental health providers in Arizona.
Yeah.
That they became the church. They felt the need and they went and did it. And that to us, we did our job. We put them in a financial situation where they can go and be the church to their community. And I think that's really what COVID's done. COVID's forced organizations to stop worrying about how many people are coming to the door on Sunday and start worrying about how many people in their neighborhoods, in their communities are being brought the message of Christ. And to me, that cannot be, no matter what happens, and it's a tragedy to see all the death. It's a tragedy to see everything happen. But if God's a God of redemption, and he's redeeming this to get his message out there the ways that he hasn't been able to do in decades in the United States. And to me, that's terribly exciting.
Yeah, it was definitely a wake up, oh sleeper kind of feeling. Like let's figure out what's next so that we can move forward and do it better. And I think what we saw really was, I feel like maybe the next part of the Reformation of giving the ministry back to the people, right? Like giving the ministry back to who it belongs to, which is our people, not just our buildings.
That's beautifully said. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Okay, so what do you think the future of the church looks like now that we've pivoted this way? I mean, I know our churches are doing some online, some not, so obviously some are not doing stuff in person. What are you hoping it looks like as we move into 2021?
I think it's interesting. I would say I have absolutely no clue what the church is actually going to look like when this is done. And if anyone who thinks they do hasn't been talking to you or Kenny enough. But what I'm hoping for, what I'm really hoping for in this is that the church start to devalue big gatherings and start to value community organization. And what I mean by that is that there's nothing wrong with getting together and having celebration.
Yeah.
But go do it at a park.
Right.
Go do it at unexpected places. Right. Do it. Keep doing it online.
Community. Right.
Yeah, and just take a step out and say, yeah, we have this fantastic facility, but what can we use it for other than trying to draw everyone here? Mm-hmm. What can we do that brings the community here while we're out there? Right. And I think that's going to be the interesting part for me is to see how many churches really pivot to this. Hey, wait a minute. We don't need to be here Sunday morning every Sunday. We can go do something else, and it's okay.
Right.
And quite frankly, the giving numbers in churches bear out that it's possible.
Yep, 100%.
We've seen an increase in the churches that we serve in their monthly giving through 2020 over 2019. And they're not meeting in person. They're not doing nearly as much, but they're doing it more effectively and they're getting the support. So I think that's something that I think it's going to, I'm really excited to see what new models come out because I frankly have no idea. And I'm really glad I'm not working in church trying to figure it out right now.
Yeah. Well, I think it looks a little different, smaller. I hope that we don't stop doing online church. I hope, exactly the same thing that you said. Like, I just hope we don't go back to the way things were, because I feel like that's not what God wants us to do. We should move forward. Okay, so my next question, final question. So you were a sponsor of She Leads Church, and we're so grateful. So thank you so much for sponsoring She Leads Church. It's a passion project of mine that came about with just growing up in the church and just, figuring out leadership as a woman and those kind of things. And figure out where God has called me to. And anyways, we appreciate the fact that you partnered with us to help women in their leadership roles at churches. And so my question here is, how has CDF partnered with women in churches as well?
So for us, it's really fascinating because it being such a fractional issue in the evangelical church of what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. And we kind of aren't interested in that conversation. What we're interested in is developing leaders wherever they are and whoever they may be.
I think we are in agreement on that. That's kind of exactly how we feel. Like theologically, it doesn't matter, but wherever, it does matter probably to your church, but we really want to just empower the leadership wherever it can lie on that. We just want to make sure that we're doing what we're allowing women to rise to the level that they're called to.
Absolutely. And throughout the years, we have women that are in leadership positions within our organization, senior leadership positions. And so for us, it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of where are the push points? Where are the fulcrums that leadership is resting on? And where are the wrinkles and the places that others aren't pouring into and others aren't recognizing as clearly and maybe as rapidly as need be? Because at the end of the day, we just want to see church be great. That's it.
Right.
We want to see the church thrive. And that, regardless of what you think theologically, it's not going to thrive on the back of only men. It's going to thrive on the communities coming together and leadership coming together, whatever it looks like, whatever race, creed, ethnicity, gender looks like. Right. And for us to have an opportunity to partner with She Leads, it's fantastic because it's an opportunity for us to say, hey, we believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And let's just pour into people as they need to be poured into. But over the years, we've done everything we can to be as broad as we can in how we approach it. And we don't look at it as a gender issue. We look at it as a pragmatic issue, to be honest with you. Well, if the culture and the church is embracing the role of women in leadership at whatever level theological comfort is there, then we want to be there too, because we want those churches to be great.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's like, why not? Question is why? It's like, why not?
Yeah.
Why aren't more people supporting She Leads or other conferences like it? Because it's worthwhile doing, and that's just enough for us.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate it. Yeah. So I think that's all my questions for today. Do you have anything you would like to promote or add? How can people find you?
Really simply, they can go to cdf.capital/She Leads and kind of get information about us, sign up to get more information about who we are. It's a place where you just give us your information. You get 50% off of one of our digital products for going there. I promise I don't spam people on the communication side of things, so you won't get a ton of emails from us, but you will learn about us and who we are. And if you want more from us, you can stick around. If not, you can unsubscribe. But really, that's going to be the easiest place. It's cdf.capital/She Leads.
All right. Awesome. Well, you heard it from Nathan, cdf.capital/She Leads. That's an awesome domain name, by the way. So way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate you hanging out and just what you're doing. And CDF Capital, what an amazing mission and just helping the church. And so I'm so grateful for it. And so thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate all you do for the church and your organization. I'm a big fan. So thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Church Communications Podcast with Katie Allred and Kenny Jahng. If you liked our show today and want to learn more, you can join our Facebook group with over 25,000 church leaders. Simply search for Church Communications on Facebook. And if you liked today's episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to become better communicators for the church. And finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.